The lower rings of Hell all seem to have their own unique species that reign supreme in that ring, but the Pride Ring is interesting in that fans see both the Sinners and the Ars Goetia as being important Pride Ring species, if you will. It's been explained by the Helluva Boss Twitter account that the Sinners are restricted to the Pride Ring, but it hasn't actually been confirmed that the Goetia have some sort of tie to the Pride Ring over the others. So I thought now would be a great time to talk about those two titles, where they fit in the hierarchy, and their relationship to the Pride Ring itself. Now, in the lowest ring of Hell, there is the candle-headed Baphomet-looking demons that live in Sloth. Above that would be the Envy Ring, where we would see these deep-sea demons, I imagine. Succubus are, of course, natives to Lust. Greed has the Lone Sharks, Gluttony the Hellhounds, and Wrath the Imps. Pride, however, didn't appear to have some local native species, but instead is mostly overrun with the Earthborn Sinners. I had previously theorized that the Pride Ring may have been home to some other major sentient species deep in Hell's past. Pride is the surface of Hell, with the other rings below it, and it doesn't seem like life is any less able to evolve up there than in the other rings. It's been said in early live streams even that there are parts of Hell where the wildlife grows to insane monstrosities because of the pooling of the evil that a sinner's soul leaves behind when they are killed in the annual extermination. No mortal demonic species of a short lifespan like the Imps would have been able to survive for very long in the Pride Ring, however, when humans first started to manifest there, perhaps millions of years ago, or just thousands of years ago, depending on the show's internal lore. The Sinners seem to have the desire and really need to eat, and while they won't die from starvation, I imagine it to be an extremely painful process to starve while being immortal in Hell. There would immediately be a resource war between the existing species in Pride and the Sinners, who would need food just to stop themselves from being in eternal pain. By comparison, they likely saw the lives of these temporary native-born demons as not all that important, hence why these Sinners outrank the native species of Hell on the hierarchy. I imagine this would lead to the extinction of perhaps several species in Pride before the more organized system that has the Imps growing all the food in Wrath would come to fruition. Native species all have varying lifespans, however, and while the Imps live lives that are relatively similar to humans, some of the elite demons are long-living or even immortal. It's hard to say precisely where the Goetia fall into this, but many fans suspect that they themselves are the native species to the Pride Ring. As of now, the popular theory is that the Ars Goetia are largely bird-based demons with a long-living or immortal lifespan, with the angelic weapons being the only way to kill them, such as we see with Stryker trying to assassinate Stolas. Because of their long lifespans, they'd be able to compete with the Sinners, even if they aren't entirely immortal, and from what we can see, the Goetia are definitely more powerful than even the Overlords. This fan-made chart based off of VivziePop's offhanded power listing shows the Goetia as being one step above the Overlord, and even the massively powerful Alistair was said to be of a lower power level than Stolas in the Goetia by VivziePop in an early Q&A. Last I checked, it was still uncertain whether or not the Goetia were going to be fallen angels or native species to Hell that are just particularly powerful. Regardless of where they get their magic from, we see that Stolas has access to a large library of spellbooks, at least one for every member of the Ars Goetia, though like we see in the Season 2 premiere, he still has to go through other demons, like Osmodeus, to use some of their powers and magic items, such as the Osmodian Crystal. The focused powers of the Goetia tend to be on the ways to interact with Earth, but the raw power of these demons appears to be unrivaled by any of the Overlords in the Pride Ring. We've seen in comics, for instance, that Alistair has an impressive and scary full demon form, but it looks like nothing compared to the scary beast mode that Stolas enters in episode 6 of Season 1 of Helluva Boss. Fans believe that the Goetia rule over the Pride Ring from what we call the 9 circles of Hell, which are different from the 7 rings of Hell that are stacked on top of each other. Imp City has a sign saying that they are the 2nd circle of Hell, so it would appear that they are 9 cities in the Pride Ring specifically, called circles after the works of Dante, with the first circle being Pentagram City, underneath the literal circle containing the pentagram that floats above the city. I've seen fans speculate that the Ars Goetia are going to be divided into 9 groups to work at these 9 sort of major cities in the Pride Ring with a focus on conquering the Earth. Evidence supporting this shows that even outside of social events like those held at Stolas' home, the Bird Goetia elites are just seen hanging around with one another in the Pride Ring, such as we see right before Stolas gets kidnapped by Stryker. Andrealphus, with his ice powers, is believed to be located in the 9th circle of the Pride Ring, which is described as icy in Dante's Divine Comedy, similar to the castle Andrealphus is seen at with Stella. Outside of this, we have no confirmation though, and of course one king in the Ars Goetia, Asmodeus, is known for also being a prince of hell ruling over the Ring of Lust. Because of that, I still think it's possible the Goetia are spread out all over hell instead of being natives to the Pride Ring, but regardless of where they are actually from, it doesn't really change the dynamic they have with the Overlords. Now, with the powers they have, the Ars Goetia could seemingly stomp out the competition of the Overlords, but it seems they don't actually want to do that. The show of Helluva Boss, from what I understand, was originally going to focus more so on the missions that Stolas gives Blitz and the IMP gang to go up to Earth and murder important people, such as we saw in the pilot with Stolas wanting someone dead for trying to convince people global warming exists. Stolas says that the more people who die from this, the more people they get in hell, which appears to be the goal despite Hazbin Hotel being premised on there being an annual extermination because there is an overpopulation of sinners. Now, the show has changed a lot with Stolas not really giving them any missions, but we've seen in other episodes that demons are influencing Earth, particularly Asmodeus with his succubus, that he sends up to Earth to spread lust and STDs. This gives the impression that Hell, or at least the Goetia, are still trying to conquer and influence our planet, with even the Prince of Wrath Satan seemingly getting involved with this by sending imps to war missions on Earth. Now, why is this when, for every sinner that they get into hell, another seemingly has to die during the next extermination to make room for them? What's interesting is that heaven's standards also appear to be extremely high, and while some vile people are indicated to get in, it is through backdoor channels and bribery, it seems, as heaven wants only the best and most useful to them. So why does hell focus so much on getting more sinners, especially when it could lead to more powerful overlords joining the ranks? This video is set up as a bit of a versus video to discuss the power differences between the Goetia and the Overlords, but in reality, I think the Overlords are ultimately intended to be used in hell in some sort of final conflict with heaven, prophesized in all of our apocalyptic texts. Many religions and mythologies have legends of an end times battle between the forces of good and the forces of evil, and Stolas' job specifically in the show is to study the stars for their prophecies, where much of the ancient symbolism about the end times was said to be hidden. According to myth, the original fallen angels came down to Earth and taught humans how to build and start societies, but darker angels with evil intentions would give them knowledge and sorcery that they were not ready for. Those original angels were also said to give humans knowledge of the future that was said to be encoded into the stars. In my previous video, we explored how this can even be seen in the Book of Revelations, where God is said to sit upon the throne carried by 4 beasts, with each beast representing one of the 4 cardinal points in the astrological zodiac. Stolas' job then seems to be discover as much as he can about the apocalypse so that hell can use it to their advantage and win the final conflict, and I think that sheds a light on what the Goetia is doing as a whole. We can't say that any demon will side with the elites of hell in some final conflict against heaven, but the more people they have coming in, the more powerful demons they can cultivate for perhaps using in that battle. The annual extermination then is just part of the process of picking off the least powerful sinners. The most powerful sinners, whether because of money or raw magic, would be able to fight back against the exorcist angels in some way. Each year then, hell becomes more and more powerful perhaps, with new potential powerful sinners flooding in each day, and less powerful sinners being weeded out each extermination. By the time this final conflict comes, perhaps the Goetia hope that the sinners are, at least physically, as powerful as the Overlords. Even angel dust can be used in a combat situation, so after hundreds or thousands of years of practice and weeding out weak sinners with the angels, I think it's possible that the Goetia think they could overwhelm heaven in a final conflict. I don't think this means they'd win heaven itself, but rather they'd win the earth for whatever it is worth to them. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts on the Overlords and the Goetia in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time.